What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you are excited because the 2021 NFL Draft is less than 1 week away. That's right. We are inside of a week. As far as knowing who the Dallas Cowboys are going to take, they obviously have 10 picks to work with in the 2021 NFL Draft. We have a lot to sort of anticipate, a lot to guess about. It's something we've been obviously having a lot of fun doing over the course of the last couple of weeks. If you haven't seen every Tuesday, the Talk of the Draft crew at BTB has been here on our YouTube channel doing some live streams. We've done some first round mock drafts. We've done some full Cowboys mock drafts. We'll do another one this upcoming Tuesday. If you want to check it out, make sure you do subscribe here to our channel. But today, because look, here's the thing. We kind of know, right? We have a really good idea in terms of what the Cowboys are going to do with the 10th overall pick. We know it's going to be one of Patrick Surtain or Jaycee Horn or Kyle Pitts maybe or Penei Sewell or Rashawn Slater. It's going to be somebody in that neck of the woods. But today we are here to talk about some later round prospects, some players that the Cowboys could take later on in the draft. In fact, let's put their full draft stock up here again for you to see. The Cowboys, again, have the 10th overall pick. Congratulations to them. They certainly earned it. It was a very painful experience for them to get number 10 overall, as we all well know. In round 2, they have the 44th overall pick. We've petitioned them at times to trade, say, Michael Gallup to pick up another second-round pick. Maybe they do trade out of 10 overall and get another second-round pick. That remains to be seen. In the third round, number 75 overall, they also got a third-round compensatory pick for Byron Jones, the 99th overall pick. That gives the Cowboys 4 selections inside of the top 100. They do have 2 fourth-round picks at 115 overall and 138 overall. They have only 1 fifth-round pick. This is their compensatory pick. If you will recall, the Cowboys traded what was their original fifth-round pick last year with the Philadelphia Eagles when they moved up to get Tyler Biadasz. That is at 179 overall. 2 sixth-round picks, obviously their own in a compensatory, 192, 227, and their last pick currently scheduled to be at number 238 overall. So, look, we wanted to consult the best. That's what we do at bloggingtheboys.com. So we went to our beloved, wonderful, incredible, bright-minded staff at bloggingtheboys.com, who you can read all of the time at bloggingtheboys.com. We asked them, hey, guys, who are some people that could be legitimate targets for the Cowboys in the later rounds, outside the first round, outside the second round? Sometimes things get a little bit fluky with the NFL drafts. You know how it can be. And we've got a few answers to go through in terms of what our writers suggested. So let's go ahead and get things started with Paulson Adebo, cornerback out of Stanford. Projected pick potentially as a second or third rounder. Again, remember the Cowboys do have 2 third-round picks. Maybe the Cowboys will double up at corner. We've certainly seen that happen many times before. If they take Patrick Surtain or Jaycee Horn, maybe that affects their strategy later on. Maybe they don't feel the need to spend another top 100 pick on a cornerback. But David Howman from bloggingtheboys.com offered us this when it comes to Paulson Adebo. Quote, he's got shutdown corner traits and great athleticism and would be a perfect fit in Dan Quinn's cover 3 scheme. Of course, Dan Quinn entering his first season as the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator. And look, we acknowledge that he doesn't have a lot to work with. And we're assuming, right, that Patrick Surtain or Jaycee Horn are going to be one of his newest toys. The Cowboys let Chidobe Awuzie walk in free agency. They did return Jordan Lewis for what it's worth. They have Trayvon Diggs entering year 2. They obviously still have Anthony Brown. Maybe they are planning on kicking Reggie Robinson back over to cornerback. It was Rashard Robinson who was suspended for the first 2 games of the season, not Reggie Robinson. Don't get the 2 confused. But Paulson Adebo, I mean, look, if you're telling me the Cowboys walk away with 2 corners in the first 3 rounds with their first 4 picks, I'm not upset about that. I feel fairly confident about that in the future of the corner position. It was 4 years ago that the Cowboys threw a lot of draft resources at corner. In fact, we mentioned Cheeto and Jordan Lewis 4 years ago in 2017. The Cowboys took Chidobe Awuzie in the second round, and then right after that, Jordan Lewis in the third round. So they've certainly done this before. They're not against it. That secondary, as we all know, needs a lot of work. The Cowboys defense as a whole is bad, don't get me wrong, but the secondary is by far the weakest element of it. And so if the Cowboys can restock it, I mean, it doesn't automatically make it something that is reliable, something that's great, something that's dependable, but it does give them at least, some players that Dan Quinn can work with. And I think that that's the important key thing here when it comes to a Howman set. I mean, you think about it, a perfect fit for Dan Quinn's cover 3 scheme. That's what we have talked so much about that cannot be lost. If the Cowboys truly want something to be different on defense, they cannot just go at it with the same idea. They have to cater to what their defensive coordinator wants. And they haven't done that for far too long. They've done it in the wrong ways. Don't get me wrong, because like the Taco Charlton pick, the Tristan Hill pick, those were things that the Cowboys did to cater to Rod Marinelli. And all due respect to Rod Marinelli, not really a great defensive coordinator anymore, right? It's past 2002. So, I mean, times have changed. Whereas here we are with Dan Quinn. I mean, give Dan Quinn what fits Dan Quinn's scheme. The reason the Cowboys, look, you don't fire your defensive coordinator, Mike Nolan, and go get somebody like Dan Quinn if you're not committed to being all in. You have to be all in when it comes to what Dan Quinn wants to do defensively. And if Paulson Adebo is somebody that Dan Quinn views as a logical and legitimate and, piece that can assimilate very well, you've got to do that. And so I like this suggestion when it comes to, a potential second or third round pick. So congratulations to David Howman for it. Certainly one of the best ones we've gotten. We have a lot of great ones. But there's so many people that say the Cowboys have 10 picks in the NFL draft. Use them all on defense. And that sounds like an exaggeration. That sounds like a joke, but things are so bad on the defensive side of the ball that people really do want to see it restocked in a whole completely, totally different way. But let's move on. This suggestion also comes to us from David Howman. So he's doing a lot of work here on today. Andre Cisco. Andre Cisco. What happened? I was about to say Syracuse at the same time. So Andre Cisco, whatever. Andre Cisco, safety out of Syracuse. It's another option. Again, going off of Howman's scouting report here. When I watch Andre Cisco, I see the perfect safety for Dan Quinn. Again, David Howman here is targeting the right way. The perfect safety for Dan Quinn specifically. He plays with the physicality of Keanu Neal, already a member of the Dallas Cowboys, and the ball hawking skills of Damontae Kazee, incidentally, also a member of the Dallas Cowboys, another potential second or third round pick. And I think that this is probably a pick that most Cowboys fans are down with if they do walk away with Patrick Surtain or Jaycee Horn in the first round, because we've talked so much about corner, and rightly so, because the Cowboys haven't added a corner this free agency season, right? They've brought back Jordan Lewis, and that's fine, but they have not added any outside corners. Technically, the Cowboys have added a number of safeties. They've added 3 safeties. We already mentioned 2 of them, and Keanu Neal, who technically is going to play some weak side linebacker too, and Damontae Kazee. And so while I'm not saying, the Cowboys are good at safety, don't worry about safety, but this draft is not rich at the top in safety, which is why, all the talk has been about Surtain and Horn and Caleb Farley and whatever the case may be. So if you're the Cowboys, this is where the value starts to make sense in the NFL draft, which is why Howman has round 2 or 3 here. And so if you walk away, because we're talking, a minute ago, we talked about obviously the idea of Paulson Adebo and restocking your cornerback department. But if you restock, and restock is not enough, again, I realize this, but if you replenish, at least from a talent perspective, your secondary with one of the top corners and somebody like Andre Cisco early on in the NFL draft, well, now you're utilizing these draft picks in the way that they're intended to be used. And you're kind of tying a secondary to a timeline together. Obviously, Trayvon Diggs is a year older than all these players in NFL age, and so his contract will be up 1 year sooner. But this is the way you want to do it. I mean, it's hard to find a way that makes more sense if you're going to go about replacing your secondary production than to do it this way. And it's clear the Cowboys have wanted to do it this way. That's why they haven't been active on the corner market in free agency so far. I think that is why it's so logical that they will take one of the top ones in the first round. But again, this about Andre Cisco, and look, the Cowboys do not believe, for whatever reason, it's frustrating, they don't believe in devoting legitimate resources to the safety position. We know that they don't like to spend big in free agency there. Keanu Neal didn't exactly break the bank. They never went after Earl Thomas to the point that they made it happen. I love Xavier Woods and wish him the best in Minnesota. But I mean, and by the way, Xavier Woods, a big fan of the challenge. Hopefully you enjoyed the season finale. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it was fun. But Xavier Woods, we all got so hyped and so into it and so just kind of fell in love with the potential of it all. But we got hoodwinked, right? I mean, he was a 6th round pick. And yeah, the Cowboys traded up to get him in 2017, that same Cheeto and Jordan Lewis draft. But I mean, it was, there are reasons that players last to the 6th round. And yeah, sometimes they turn out to be awesome. And the NFL draft is unpredictable in that sense. But I mean, you can't just continually think that you're going to pull off, diamond after diamond after diamond back there. And that's why, look, I've said this as a Fighting Texas Aggie, and spoiler alert, the direction we're about to go in. I love Donovan Wilson, but you cannot rely on that. And so the Cowboys, look, it's time. It's time. This is still not a big time resource, a second or third round pick. And I know if I said it, I feel like it's been forever. People love to say since Darren Woodson. Need I remind you, and not that this worked out. Okay, so I'm not saying that. But in 2013, the Cowboys did spend a third round pick on a safety in J.J. Wilcox. So, I mean, even if you view that as like something legitimate, it's still been now 8 years. So the time has come for the Cowboys. Look, do something legitimate, spend something legitimate, spend some actual, highly coveted draft capital on the secondary, on the safety, not the secondary, definitely on the secondary, but on the safety position, because if you don't, you're going to end up with the same results over and over and over again. And that, as we know, is the definition of insanity. But I mentioned the Fighting Texas Aggies. Let's talk about Bobby Brown from Texas A&M University. This scouting report comes to us from Blogging the Boys' Tom Ryle. You can hear Tom every Thursday on the Blogging the Boys podcast network on Riled Up with Roy White. Tom offers this on Bobby Brown III. In a draft with not many legit one-tech candidates, he is someone the team should definitely be looking at. Potential third or fourth round pick. Remember, the Cowboys have 2 picks in each the third and fourth round. So here's the deal. The Cowboys, as far as defensive tackle, have, and we're talking defensive tackle as a whole here, have options, I should say, and like have options that we're somewhat interested in. Tristan Hill, second round pick now 2 years ago, coming back from torn ACL. People forget that all the time. Lost in the same game that Dak Prescott was lost in and was really playing well. Tristan Hill's rookie season in 2019 did not go well in any capacity, but he was playing really well this past season. Remember, he changed numbers, went from 97 because Everson Griffin got there to 72, took Travis Frederick's old number, whatever. And Neville Gallimore played really well, obviously, with the context of it being his rookie season. The Cowboys free agent additions last year did not go well, obviously, in Gerald McCoy and Dontari Poe, and they really haven't done much this offseason except bring back Antoine Woods. We'll see. And look, that's no disrespect to their free agent additions. They're outside free agent additions. The point is, you need bodies. And I like where Tom's head is at here, because if you're just trying to restock, to replenish, to kind of use the buzzword of the day here on this show, I mean, there's nowhere better than the middle of your defensive line. And so, yeah, and to Tom's point, this is not a rich draft at defensive tackle as a whole. And so much of the draft is about value, right? Like, that's why, I'm sure there's somebody in your life who has told you the Cowboys need a defensive tackle, blah, blah. That's true, but there's not one that justifies the 10th overall pick. There's not one that justifies, one at a highly priced point. And so that's why round 3 or 4, that makes sense. And again, the Cowboys did spend a third round pick on a defensive tackle last year, Neville Gallimore. Will they do it again this year? I don't know. But this is a legitimate, a worthy candidate. So good job, Tom, on that. By the way, speaking of Fighting Texas Aggies, I will be speaking with Fighting Texas Aggie quarterback Kellen Mond on the SB Nation NFL show next week. So make sure you go subscribe over there. Wherever you get your podcast, should be a good time. You can never have enough Aggies in the NFL. Can never have enough Aggies on the Dallas Cowboys, especially defensively. Let him go rejoin Donovan Wilson. That'd be a lot of fun. But let's keep moving on. Charles Snowden. This particular scouting report, again, comes to us from David Howman, doing a lot of work this week. David Howman is some fine work. Make sure you check him out at bloggingtheboys.com. Linebacker out of Virginia, potential 4th or 5th round pick for the Dallas Cowboys. These are the names that you need to know, names you need to familiarize yourself with. According to David Howman, reading his exact quote here, he can rush the passer in blitz packages, take away parts of the field in zone coverage, and hardly ever misses tackles. Now, in just about every mock draft we've done here on the channel, obviously Connor Livesay, Dalton Miller, Cole Patterson, they've all, touched on the fact that the Cowboys need help at linebacker, right? I mean, I mentioned a minute ago that the secondary is probably the weakest part of the defense overall, but the linebacker group is like barely stable. Is that the way that I would put it? It's, it's to the point that, it's the house that the little piggy made of straw, right? Like, it could very easily come tumbling down, because Leighton Vander Esch, we don't know what his injury situation is going to be. Jalen Smith, whether he switches to number 9 now that he technically can, I don't think that's going to improve who he is as an NFL linebacker. So outside of that, though, the Cowboys don't have really much depth. We had obviously Francis Bernard here on the channel. You can go watch our interview with him. Talked a lot about his goals for the season, but one of his primary goals was on special teams. And all due respect to Francis Bernard, we'll see how much the Cowboys use use him defensively. Maybe Luke Gifford is in their plans, but Joe Thomas is a Houston Texan. I mean, so yeah, it makes a lot of sense that the Cowboys are going to draft a linebacker because, like, in a totally different way than almost anything else defensively, they need to plan for the future now, which is why, early on in the draft process, a lot of people thought that Micah Parsons made sense for the Cowboys. And I think we're all against that now. If you're not against that, then you're kind of on an island by yourself. But the point, actually, why would you be on an island not by yourself? But whatever. Anyway, so yeah, this makes sense. And this is the time, I think, right? Because we're kind of if you envision the way you want the draft to unfold for the Cowboys, first round, you want your blue chip, can't miss prospect. Lots of people want to see that on the defensive side of the ball, whether that's Patrick Surtain, Jaycee Horn, whatever. But that's what you want, right? Second round, double down, maybe like we talked about. Maybe you want to take Andre Cisco. Maybe you want to take Paulson, Adebo. If you feel like the time is right, if you do feel like the value is there. And a lot of this, again, depends on trades and movements and whatever the case may be. But once you get here to rounds 4 and 5, and again, Cowboys have 2 4th-round picks, but only 1 5th-round pick. Now you're not buying lottery tickets, but now you're finding special teams guys, kind of guys you're going to nurture and grow. I mean, and this is where the Cowboys, to be quite frank, have excelled is putting it way too aggressively or exaggerating too much, but the Cowboys have had success in this area when it comes to drafting linebackers. Anthony Hitchens, 4th-round pick. Damian Wilson, 4th-round pick. And so they have turned, those players, or helped turn those players into legitimate contributors for another team. And so that's not an ideal result. They both won the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs, but the Cowboys are good at finding linebackers in the middle of the draft. And so Charles Snowden, definitely somebody whose name you should know, whose name you should start associating with the potential middle of the rounds as a potential option for the Dallas Cowboys. And especially because, like I said, I mean, if any one of these, of the names that we've mentioned so far, and again, we're talking Paulson, Adebo, Andre Cisco, Bobby Brown, Charles Snowden, if any of these players got drafted by the Cowboys, who would stand the largest chance of contributing the most during their rookie season? Right? Like, of these 4 players that we've talked about so far, who has the best potential opportunity? I say potential because they're not even on the team yet, but the best potential opportunity to contribute right here, right now, in our present time. It has to be Charles Snowden, right? Because of the state of the linebacker position. He's far more likely than anybody else to get legitimate playing time just because of what's around him. So you've got to make sure that you're getting the right players there. So Charles Snowden, definitely an option. Let's move on. Let's go to the offensive side of the ball. David Howman again. Man, David Howman, what a beast. What a guy. Check out David Howman at bloggingtheboys.com. Like I said, Ihmir Smith-Marsette, wide receiver out of Iowa. It does make sense that the Cowboys would take a wide receiver. And I know that they obviously have a lot of wide receivers that we value, but you have to start considering the future beyond Michael Gallup because he is in a contract year. And nobody's saying that this is going to be something or someone that does develop into that, but you have to have options, right? And that's something, again, kind of to the linebacker point. This is something the Cowboys have done well at, and this is an argument for letting Michael Gallup walk in free agency. When it comes to wide receivers, and I mean this, again, with all due respect to Michael Gallup, you either want the alpha of the alphas, and that's why you spend the elite commodity on them, like CeeDee Lamb last year, or you want the late round players that have a lot of potential that you believe can grow and develop, kind of like when the Cowboys took Michael Gallup in the 3rd round back in 2018. And so, yeah, if the Cowboys feel like Ihmir Smith-Marsette is somebody that can be that, I don't see why it's a bad idea, especially when you consider, that they are going to potentially need another wide receiver starting in 2022. According to Mr. David Howman, his scouting report, I'd love to spend love. L is for the way you look at me. O is for the only one I see. And V is very, very extraordinary. But I'd love to spend a later pick on Ihmir Smith-Marsette, who gives me strong discount CeeDee Lamb vibes. And again, that's the thing, right? Like, unless you're going to spin the actual, unless you're going to get Chris Evans, Captain America from the Falcon and Winter Soldier, all right, you want to just spin the 4th or 5th round pick and get, John Wyatt Walker. I don't know. I've been watching the show, I promise, but I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but you know my point. But that's the idea, right? Because you're either going to spin for real, or you're going to get the discount. So Ihmir Smith-Marsette, 4th or 5th round pick. And again, this is the time we're envisioning the Cowboys have already stocked up on corner. They've already gotten a safety. They've already gotten another linebacker to kind of prepare themselves for the future. So yeah, take a flyer on offense. And I think that that's a really, really, really smart potential thing to do. So, again, this cannot be a draft entirely full of defensive players. It can't. It simply cannot. And it stands to the Cowboys are probably going to draft a tackle at some point, especially if they don't take one at 10 overall. And so they're probably going to draft a receiver. I don't know that I think they'll draft a tight end unless it's Kyle Pitts, but it wouldn't hurt them, again, when you consider the fact that Dalton Schultz is in a contract year. But the Cowboys will need another wide receiver sooner rather than later. You can always use them on special teams. Let Bones Fossil work with them, move on, and prosper. So we have talked about, 5 prospects so far: Paulson, Adebo, Andre Cisco, Bobby Brown, Charles Snowden, and Ihmir Smith-Marsette. And so I'm going to try to guess. You say it out loud, wherever you are, who your favorite one is that we've talked about. I'm going to try to guess. Paulson, Adebo. That's it. Boom. I know. I got the answer. No big deal. Let's keep moving on. Josh. This one's tough. Imatorbhebhe. All right. That's right. We're going to refer to him as Josh from here on out. Wide receiver out of Illinois, the Fighting Illini, depending on where you're from. Another projected 5th round pick, potentially. This comes to us from Matt Holleran. All right. If we're talking strictly about the best overall athletes in the draft class, Josh, we're sticking to Josh I, likely would be near the top. Now, here's the thing. Again, when you're getting this late, you have to talk yourself into a guy, and 5th round's still pretty okay. It's not terrible, but you have to talk yourself into a guy for a specific reason, right? Because you're no longer near the alphas, right? Like now you're in love with specific traits, right? You're in love with the way he attacks the ball. You're in love with his speed. You're in love with, his coverage skills. There's a specific thing that has you completely and totally, in love with the guy. And it's the reason why you're standing on the table, pounding the table, saying, this is the guy that we have to spend this particular pick on. Again, Matt has him as a projected 5th round pick. The Cowboys only have one 5th round pick, unlike the 3rd. And so the Cowboys are going to have 2 picks in the 3rd round, going to feel awesome. Going to have 2 picks in the 4th round, going to get to the 5th round and go, wait a minute, we only get to pick once? This sucks. Yeah, I know, but you have Tyler Biadasz, so be thankful. So if you're going to only pick once in the 5th round, you got to make a really strong and compelling case. And so, yeah, I mean, get a great athlete, right? I mean, that's today's NFL. It's jump ball NFL. I mean, go for it. And look, I mean, we've got another candidate to our number 9 here, potentially. I mean, if you want some drama, no big deal. But ultimately, I think it would be wise of the Cowboys. And I already said, I think it would be wise of them to consider the future. And they really are generally, like I can promise you, I don't promise, but I feel very strong in the conviction that the Cowboys are going to walk away with a wide receiver in rounds 4, 5, or 6, somewhere around there, just because it simply makes sense to. They have a future need, and you're not just drafting for the state of your team in 2021. You're looking at 2022, and you're saying, we're probably not going to have Michael Gallup. We're probably not going to have Dalton Schultz. We're probably going to have to do this. We're probably going to have to do that. And so you have to make sure that you're prepared for a number of different current and future scenarios, which is why this one is interesting. Last one we're going to talk about, and I mentioned earlier that I'm going to be interviewing Texas A&M quarterback Kellen Mond, who went to the superior school in the state of Texas. So now it's time to talk about a quarterback who went to the inferior school in the state of Texas. That's right. You have likely heard the name a number of different times on plenty of Saturdays throughout the state of Texas. Sam Ehlinger, quarterback out of University of Texas, potential 6th or 7th round pick. And look, I know what you're thinking. Dak Prescott just got paid. Yes, he did. And in no way is his job in jeopardy. In no way would Sam Ehlinger challenge Dak Prescott or anybody in the NFL. But we know that this is Mike McCarthy's team. A few weeks ago on one of the live shows, I asked all the Talking the Draft guys if they thought the Cowboys would draft a quarterback. And they all said no. So I'm kind of, combating them for a moment here. But I think it's certainly possible because Mike McCarthy loves to have project quarterbacks on his roster. That is something that you can tell all the way through his days with the Green Bay Packers. And so, I mean, with all due respect, I feel like we've taken some unnecessary shots at people today, but with all due respect to the Nooch, Ben DiNucci, we found out last year, and I know it was his rookie year, and I know he was never expected to start, and it happened, and it was unfortunate, whatever. But we know that that's not really a project worth investing much more time in, right? So if you're the Cowboys, I mean, if the goal should be, I should say, have your unquestioned starter in Dak Prescott, have your veteran backup. So you've got Garrett Gilbert, who also went to the University of Texas, by the way, and then have your project that you're working on. And, obviously we're anticipating preseason games happening this season. So have your guy that you can get preseason action. And to be fair to Ben DiNucci, he didn't get that opportunity. So maybe he would be better if he did, but still you want to have that guy. You want to have that guy that you're constantly invested in, constantly grooming, constantly growing, constantly developing. And Sam Ehlinger has traits. Sam Ehlinger, very infamously said that Texas was back, and they're not. But I mean, somebody who has played some big time college football. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, compared to Ben DiNucci, who was coming from James Madison. I mean, it's a very different world, obviously playing, on the land of the 40 acres. And so, I mean, Sam Ehlinger has some perspective on what it is like to play for the Dallas Cowboys in the world of college football at the collegiate level, obviously, within the state of Texas specifically, although Texas A&M is better, but you know how it is. I mean, horns up, horns down, whatever. But according to Brian Martin, actually, Brian Martin wrote something great over at bloggingtheboys.com this past week. He wrote an all sleeper team for the NFL draft. So lots of kind of late round prospects, but Brian wrote Sam Ehlinger is a strong / powerful quarterback who reminds me a bit of Dak Prescott, both now and coming out of college. And I can kind of see that. Certainly not as, nobody was Dak Prescott at the time, coming out of Mississippi State. Nobody was as mobile. Nobody was this just force of nature coming down the middle of the field when he broke free. But Sam Ehlinger has similar physical qualities. And so I can see that. And so I wouldn't even say he's Dak Prescott light, like LITE, but he is Dak Prescott in mold, in make. And so I can see that, same sort of family of body structures. I'm not a huge fan of this idea, but it's a fair idea to consider, and it's something that could potentially possibly happen. So it's worth paying attention to. If you're a Sam Ehlinger fan, I'm sorry that you've had to deal with all of the frustration at the University of Texas, although I really am not. Let's once again take a look at all of the picks that the Dallas Cowboys have to work with. The names we have discussed today: Paulson, Adebo, Andre Cisco, Bobby Brown, Charles Snowden, Ihmir Smith-Marsette, Josh Imatorbhebhe, and Sam Ehlinger. The Cowboys, once again, 10th overall, their first round pick, 44th overall, their second round pick, 2 third round picks, 75th overall and 99th overall, to give them 4 picks inside of the top 100. They have 2 fourth round picks, which means the Cowboys have 6 picks inside of the first 4 rounds at 115 and 138 overall. In the 5th round, their lone selection at 179 overall. Their 2 6th round picks, 192 and 227, and finally 238th overall. I think it should be said that I don't think the Cowboys will pick 10 times. I think it would be wise of them to trade up if they really, truly, totally value certain players. And it's likely that they do. And they did that last year, as noted with Tyler Biadasz. They saw him falling. They said, let's give up our 5th round pick next year. We're going to get a compensatory one, which they did. And let's go get our future center. And, obviously we're all hoping that is the case. And so the reason because you say that, people say, why won't they pick 10 times? Because 10 rookies aren't making this roster. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And I know that this was a bad football team and a bad defense, but they don't have 10 open roster spots. They just don't. And so it would be wise of the Cowboys to be smart, to trade out, to trade up, to move around, be flexible in the name of getting the best possible players, because they likely will not be picking this high for a long time. We all hope, at least. So be smart, be calculated, be careful, and make sure that these late round players who you're investing these picks on, again, they're later round players, and so you don't know exactly what they're going to be, but make sure there is a purpose. Make sure you're in love with a specific trait. And these are names that kind of have those particular ideas and sort of variables floating around within them. And so we felt that they were names that you should know. But we've got a lot planned, obviously. Like I said, less than a week between us and the 2021 NFL draft. This time next week, we'll obviously be discussing and reviewing some of the players that the Cowboys have taken. Our plan is to be to be everywhere, but our plan is to do some live streams throughout the draft and to do some recaps the mornings after. We have a lot of really fun stuff in store for you. We have a roundtable coming later on this week, and obviously another live stream next week on Tuesday before the draft comes, to kind of give you our last final thoughts before things happen for real. So make sure you do subscribe right here at the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. We also have some really fun stuff in store once the draft settles down as we move on through the off season. And we do have a podcast network. We have a different show that comes out every day, so you get to hear from different hosts. We have a show with a 2-time Super Bowl champion, Tony Casillas, can be heard on Tuesday on the 750. So we have a lot of stuff coming because, to be honest, you deserve the best. We want to give you the best. We want to make sure that you always have something going on in the world of the Dallas Cowboys, because it's a world we all care about more than anything. And so we enjoy it. We're glad you do, and we appreciate you being a part of it. So subscribe here to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our podcast network. We are available on all major podcast platforms. Leave a rating, write a review. Those things really help. Check out bloggingtheboys.com. My name is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram simply at RJ Ochoa. If you have something you want to say and it's a little bit longer than the characters that Twitter or Instagram will allow, you can email me, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. But other than that, it's about to be here. It's about to be for real. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to spending the draft with you. Really looking forward to the Cowboys picking some players that are going to win the Super Bowl during their rookie season. It's going to be a lot of fun. So do me a favor, have the absolute best day of all time. I'm talking just have the best day ever. Like just whatever day you're watching this on or rewatching this on, just look at the calendar, whatever day it says, have the best day of all time. You know why? Because you deserve it. We'll see you next time.